So let's talk about the One Punch Man world and its geography, because I think it's pretty fascinating and it could give us some insight into deeper aspects of the story, as well as possibly like the future of it. So in chapter 208 of the Viz, a Mind Mass tells Saitama that long ago many nations fought over land and resources, resulting in numerous world wars. Plummeting populations caused the human species to focus on its survival. They developed a unified language and government. That was the first transformation. So we don't know how long ago this was, but before society was the way that it is that we currently see in the One Punch Man world, there was tons of wars, and I guess there was different countries and stuff too, because right now there aren't, and everyone's speaking the same language, which is pretty interesting. But we're going to get more into that right now, because the world wars had resulted in poisoning of the natural environment, drastic climate change, rising sea levels, and increasing numbers of hazardous organisms. Humanity abandoned other lands, prioritized development of this supercontinent, and moved here in great masses. That was the second transformation. Now, under the administration of this lone nation, the human race has once again grown. So that puts a lot of things into perspective. Right now in the One Punch Man world, everyone is essentially living in like one gigantic country. They all have one government and everyone's speaking the same language. Like, that's why there's all these letter cities, which I guess is like kind of like their own country in a way almost. And we haven't seen all of them, but I'm assuming there's 26 if every city is associated with just a letter of the alphabet. Now, given this information, we can speculate a lot about what could be going on in the world, because the other continents or the other places where people lived still exist. They just happen to abandon it because of drastic climate change, rising sea levels, and increasing number of hazardous organisms, meaning monsters. Now we'll put a pin in that because the Mind Mass does go more into monsters, because he says that influencing the environment won't solve everything, referring to like how humans control it. For we face a third transformation, and that's the proliferation of a natural enemy possessed of intelligence, in a word, monsters. They were a rare phenomenon until a few years ago, but recently the evacuation warnings sound so often one grows sick of it. Even worse, many come from our own ranks. So that's another really interesting thing that we didn't know about until this chapter. I mean, we knew that monster sightings were increasing as from the first episode, but we didn't know that it was like a rare phenomenon until a couple years ago. Now, monsters definitely existed back in the day. I mean, we don't know how far they go back, but I'm assuming it had to start around the time when God came into contact with Earth, because I'm pretty confident that all monsters are a result of God's influence on humanity. Like, it's some kind of mutation that he gave to them as part of his master plan or whatever. Because we see on the mural underneath the Monster Association that God's arrival goes back at least thousands of years, and at that point people were worshiping him. They were giving him like food, agriculture, and even children. And I think that goes into why monsters are even more prevalent nowadays, because I talked about this in another video, but I'm pretty sure that people become monsters because the food is poisoned by God. And now that all of humanity is centralized on this one continent, they're closer together than ever, and they're all eating the same food and drinking the same water. The water is also poisoned by God. Now, as for why monsterization is becoming way more prevalent within the last couple years specifically, I don't really know why that is. We have a few options. It could be with Saitama removing his limiter, because that happened about a year and a half ago, more or less within the time of the story. It could also have something to do with the birth of Orochi, because that happened a few years ago within the story as well. Could have something to do with Blast, although it seems like God has been aware of him for at least a decade. Now, as for why God came to Earth and started all of this, not really sure. It seems like he was some kind of cosmic entity or something that was just plaguing the universe or the galaxy in general, and he eventually found Earth to be ideally what he wanted, but he was like stripped of his power in some way, and he's like currently in another dimension, or part of him is. It almost seems seems like his corporeal form, or at least his skeletal structure, is inside of the moon itself for some reason. And that could give us insight into like what his true plan is, along with what Psycho says in chapter 130 to Tatsumaki when she says that her ultimate plan, or at least at the time, was to absorb all living creatures in the world and fuse their spirits into a single entity and become the ultimate life form, the very planet itself. Because it does seem like God wants the Earth for sure. And I say this is what God wants because God was the one who gave Psychos this power. So it's possible that she's just relaying his machinations through the influence that he gave her, because she is acting differently than she normally does, for sure, in this Sairochi form. And going further into that sequence, she says that this is the endpoint towards which all intelligent life has been headed since the beginning. And we see like this imagery of Adam and Eve, to where Eve is like accepting the devil's apple, which, you know, is like from the Bible, but it more so we see God, or at least what God looks like when he gives Orochi his power, giving an apple to a human. And I think this goes back into what we were talking about, how God came to Earth and then poisoned the food and gave it to people so that they would become monsters. I think this also has something to do with the birth of espers as well, but I could be wrong about that. Either espers are just like a natural thing that humans always had the potential to become, or this is some kind of thing that God did, which is analogous to becoming a monster maybe. But going back to like the geography of things, it also makes me wonder, like, there has to be crazy monsters out there that are living in other parts of the world, like the other continents that aren't inhabited by humans. And I really hope that one decides to explore that for some reason. Like, we go outside of the supercontinent where all of the letter cities are. We see what's going on, like the crazy climates or whatever. And there has to be like dragons, high dragons, even like maybe god level monsters out there just chilling because they had the ability to be out there, not bothered by humans or whatever. You know, kind of like the Dark Continent in Hunter x Hunter. I think there might be a Dark Continent aspect to One Punch Man. Hey guys, but first let's talk about Gamer Supps, because I absolutely love this stuff. It's a keto-friendly energy formula to get you feeling nice and right to game, study, or do whatever. And while it does have caffeine in there for a nice little boost, it's not just that. It also has nootropics in it like L-theanine, L-tyrosine, ginseng, and a few others. So it gets you nice and focused and feeling good. And if you don't like caffeine, that's fine, because they have caffeine-free flavors that just have the nootropics in it, such as Only Fox. They also have sleep support, such as this AFK blueberry lemon cake flavor. It's melatonin free, so you don't have to worry about that. And it's packed with magnesium, L-theanine, and apigenin. Take this before bed and it'll get you snoring before you know it. Gamer Supps also has these really cool shakers called waifu cups. You can't get this one anymore, or really any of them, because they sell out super fast. But if you're lucky enough, you can catch a drop maybe every other Friday or something like that.
Link in the description. Code Big Z. Everyone listening, code Big Z.
Code Big Z.
Thanks.
But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. And if you liked the video, give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.